Well, hello again. I cannot believe we are up to part 26 on this thing. I tell you what, I thought by now, I knew it was going to be a long series. I thought we'd be a little further along. Maybe I need to stop talking so much, but anyway, we'll just keep trucking along till it's done. I mean, I knew it'd be long, like I said. I remember when I did my very first restoration on the antique radio forum. I think I did it I think it was 2008 or something like that. Anyway, I went ahead and every once in a while I'd say, I know this is getting long. I need to really stop making so many videos and shorten this up. We were restoring an Atwater Kent, 1936 Atwater Kent 856. And, I used pictures and comments and all that stuff. And some of the Antique Radio Forum members went, no, don't be getting in a hurry trying to shut this down. Don't be doing that. Just go slow, take your time. We're not in any big a hurry. So, a lot of guys followed along on that Atwater Kent 856 series. That was a fun series. That was my very first one. I'll tell you what, ask me if I learned something with that series. Whoa. There were things that I did that kind of looked fairly easy, but boy, I'll tell you what, by the time I got to the point where I did it on camera, I did a lot of hair pulling and stuff like that. Well, anyway, this time, like I said, we're going to replace this resistor this capacitor right here, and we're going to go ahead and replace this black wire right here. Let me get close to you there. There's some sirens going off out here. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and replace that wire, this one right here. I've already got this wire through the hole. I haven't got the end stripped yet. And I have it followed along exactly the way the other one was, all the way around. And I've got it to right here. And it's going to be soldered to, I believe it's this one right there. So I'll need to extract that solder. And we'll get this nice new black wire up there and get this old funky looking thing out of there. And while we're at it, I think this wire down here that was laying, if you'll recall, was laying against that connector on that tube socket. We need to get rid of that. Matter of fact, I might just go ahead and get rid of all three of these funky wires. It's kind of interesting how black it is here and how nice and tan it is here. I think there was some good shorting going on here. That might have also contributed to the power transformer problem we had when we first opened this thing up. The insulation just burned down and it was touching this terminal right here. So let me see, maybe I got enough wire I can go ahead and just change all three of those out and they'll look real nice. But first we're going to go ahead and put this capacitor in. Let me show you how we're going to do that. Now we've gone through all of this already when back a few videos, and this capacitor and this resistor are both connected to ground. And they both lead back to the oscillator coil, a connector on the oscillator coil. So and it's a 1,000 ohm resistor, okay? So that shouldn't be hard to find. Let's go to the oscillator coil. Here's our oscillator coil down here. Got the big O in the middle. Let me see if I can find it just to prove it. See the big O? There you go. That's our 1,000 ohm resistor right there. Now I can take this, one end, this end is connected to the oscillator terminal right there, and the other end goes over and is connected to ground. It'll be, once I get the screw in, it'll be connected to that ground right there where that hole is. But I'll have to remove it. Now the capacitor wire that came off that same terminal is right here. See that wire right there? That's the capacitor that ran over into the box. And you'll remember that the ones I colored in green were inside the box. So it ran from the terminal on the oscillator coil through the capacitor that was inside the box and then to ground. Well, that wire is still there, and we're going to get rid of that wire. That would be, again, let me see, get my whole eyes focused here. Yep. Zoom in here a little bit. That wire right there. That wire is going to come off, and we're going to be connecting the capacitor from this terminal right here, same terminal that the resistor is connected to. We're going to connect it from there to ground. Now what I could do is I could just, since the other end of the resistor is connected to ground over here, I could just take the capacitor and solder, right across those two like that and put it in there parallel like that. But I'll tell you what, we're starting to get a little congested down there in parts because there's another resistor right there. I don't want to jam things up like that, so what I'm going to do, at least this is my initial thought, I have a terminal strip that I put in here, and one end of it has been grounded. I got it real tight to ground, that center post right there. I think what I'm going to do is connect one end of our capacitor here, where it's supposed to go to the coil terminal, and then run it up and through this tab right here to ground. So it'll be sort of like this and through here like that. Okay, that's the way we're going to do it. Only because I don't want to, have a million parts down in here interfering with one another if I ever have to do any work. Or a guy in the future may have to desolder something or something. He's going to say, man, why couldn't this guy put another 50 million parts down here and make it easy? Well, let's get that done. Let's see if I can get the capacitor in and maybe all these black wires running up there. We'll see. Well, there we go. Our black wires are now soldered in. I've changed every single one of them except a very short one all the way in the rear that's in perfect condition. I don't know how it survived like that, but it's in excellent condition. There's not a thing wrong with the insulation. It looks great. So we'll just leave that one alone. And I went ahead and soldered this end of that capacitor that was loose because we now have the black wire connected to it. And this capacitor over here is 0.01. I think it's 0.01. 0.10 is now soldered across the 1000 ohm resistor to the grounding tab on our terminal strip. So, by the way, this here, this was that. Remember, I told you that one of the wires was laying against this socket terminal right here, connector. And when I pulled it away, I tested the continuity. That's what happened. That's bare wire down in there. Totally exposed. Okay, I know you can't see it right now, but let me see. So when I touched it with my multimeter, see the wire down in there shining? Anyway, that's the kind of stuff you got to be careful of. All these wires could be like that, not just this one. Alright, that we can add a little bit more orange here. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and do that. Let's add our orange first, and then we'll go to the next thing I'm going to be working on here. Okay, we now have our capacitor, this one here, soldered up. That's taken care of, okay. And we have our capacitor right here, soldered up to ground. Alright. The next part we're going to be working on is all this stuff down here. Okay, we're going to see what we can do with that next. And if I happen to see anything up here that we have to work on, sometimes you miss things. You look right at them and you don't even see them until 4 or 5 times later you go, oh, how did I ever miss that? By the way, I want to show you something here before we cut this section off. This end of the candome resistor. So this is the end where we we followed it down in the last resistor last video. We followed it down to the bottom of the candome resistor. Well, at the opposite end of the candome resistor is a ground right there. Now that would be this end over here. Here's where we had the other stuff soldered. This end over here, we're going to have to fasten up our ground. And we do have a handy dandy little ground right here that we can set up. So I'll probably go, get loose my pencil. We'll probably go from here, this tab right here, and over and solder it to ground and get that ground hooked up. But this right here is the main thing I want to show you. Yes, the end of the resistor, the candome resistor setup we have is connected to ground, but so is this resistor, so is this capacitor, so is that capacitor, so is this capacitor right here, comes up and connects there. They all come up and connect to ground. Also this capacitor over here comes up and across it too is connected to ground, as well as the candome resistor itself. So we've got quite a mess on our hands here. We're going to have to be all hooking to ground, which may require me to come up with another, I don't know, maybe another terminal strip of some kind on there. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. This is going to be an awfully busy connection. If I try to connect all this stuff to one point, it's just going to be so full of wires, it's just going to look tacky. So we're going to have to come up with something a little neater, a little better way to do it. Not exactly certain right now. I might see. I have these terminals. I have these terminals to play with here now. I could run a ground from here to here to here to here, and I can't do it here. I can only go over about 4. I can run a jumper wire across, and then connect grounds into each one of those, and then one ground over here to this one. You see, there's ways it can be done. Since we're going to be working down in this area next installing these capacitors, I decided to go ahead and install the volume control. Now the volume control is 5,000 ohms. See right there? 5K. So we need to measure across that thing and see if we in fact have 5,000 ohms. Now I went ahead and sprayed the pot out. Earlier I sprayed it with some cleaner and WD-40 before I stuck it in here. It's been quite a while ago. After I sprayed it and got it working again, it was real tight, wouldn't hardly move. But once I sprayed it and got it working again, I stuck it in a plastic bag and put it with the rest of the parts that I have with this radio. But I never did test it. I figured it didn't matter. It was too early. I didn't even know if the rest of the radio was going to work at all. Why mess with it? I can check it later, which is right now. So I've got my multimeter hooked up to these 2 alligator wires here. We're going to measure across that pot. Now we have, this is the left side of the pot, one end of the pot, the other end of the pot, and then we have our slider in the middle, okay? So we're going to hook up our multimeter to one side. We're looking for about 5,000 ohms here. Let's see what we get. 6.19. I can handle that. Just a little bit higher. Now, incidentally, this pot's been worked on in the past. Look at that aluminum shaft on there. That is not an original shaft. Also, the shaft was cut at an angle. Looks like with a hacksaw or something. So I don't know what's been done to that. So far, though, it's good, and I'm not going to complain. If the only problem we have is about 1,000 ohms too high, not a problem. Okay. Now let's check one side of the pot. Let's check. From the middle to one side of the pot, and let me show you what we're doing on the schematic. For those of you who don't know, we're going to check from the slider to one side of the pot. It could be this end or that end, I don't know, but it's going to be from here to either here or here. And I've got them hooked up, and we're going to turn this shaft right here and watch our reading. Now we're up at max. It should go all the way down to 0. I'm turning counterclockwise now. It's going down nice. Whoop. Whoop, whoop. I don't like that. What am I looking at there, guys? What am I looking at? I'm looking at a dead spot in the pot. A dead spot. Let's move it back and forth, see if we can break it loose. Alright, she broke loose. Let's see if we can go down to 0 again. Whoop. Try it again. What I'm doing is I'm taking the shaft, I'm moving it back and forth like that, trying to see if I can reproduce that dead spot. Oh, there it is again. That is not. Is this shaft? Is the shaft? Oh, oh. What's happening is when I'm flexing this shaft, it's causing that to happen. Well, I wonder if the other side's the same way. Let's hook it up to the other side, see if the other side's the same way. Let's go over to here, move this over here. Really doesn't matter whether it's the same way. I just want to check and see if it is. All the way one way. That's not bad. All the way back the other way. Again, I'm just spinning the shaft back and forth, trying to max it from one side. Oop, there's that dead spot again. I think it's being caused by the shaft being some loose. It's either loose or something. Well, shucks. What does that mean? What that means is I'm not going to be ripping this thing out right now. I'm going to make sure that the wires are very, very clean. It may have just been a bad connection problem. I don't know, because these are some pretty old wires and they do have some tarnish on them. So I'm going to take my little pocket knife and I'm going to kind of scrape all the way around. I'm going to take the alcohol with the brush. I'm going to clean them real good and we're going to try it again. Simple things first, guys. Don't just plunge in and think, oh my God, I got a busted component or something. Let's do the simple stuff first, okay? The wires have been cleaned, scraped, and everything. They look real good now. And I'm still reading about the same as I had before. Now, it's important, you know, the reason I stressed earlier that you want to do the simple things first, you know. Don't just jump in. I can't tell you how many times I've been told or read in the antique radio forum and various places like that of a person who thought he had a problem. So they ripped it apart, and it turned out not to be the problem because they jumped in. They made a knee-jerk conclusion without thinking it out first. They jumped in, found out it was something else later on, but the part that they tore apart to try to fix that wasn't broken was now broken. You know, they took a perfectly good part and broke it. Well, that's never happened to me, of course. But anyway, we're going to go ahead. We now know what we've got across our pot. Now let's try again. Let's hook up to the middle. And I'll tell you now, I've got red hooked to the, yeah, that'll work. I'm not sure if it'll work or not. We'll give it a try. It should work. Here we go. I'm turning it clockwise. So far, so good. Come on, baby. Come on. Don't give me headaches. It's very good. It may only take just a cleaning with a little bit more WD-40. I don't know. All right, that looks good. Let me try it again. I'm going to go back down to 0. I'm going to take my time on this, you know, since I've never broken a part that was perfectly good to begin with. Let me see on down. It's nice and smooth so far. All right, so far so good. I'm still going to be spraying a little bit of, that's less than an ohm. I can live with that. All right, let's try this over here. See what we get this time. I'll spray it with a little WD-40 again, and later on, just to give it a good little oily. I might try some other kind of oil too. I'm not sure, but I want to try WD-40 first. Okay, let's go the other way. No dead spot, I hope. Alright. Alright. So far, so good. Alright, I'm not complaining about that at all. One more time, go back. You know, double check, double and triple. We're not in any hurry. I'm not going anywhere today. By the way, there'll be a mishmash video coming up pretty soon where my daughter and I we're coming up Sunday. This is Friday. On Sunday, we're going to cook in the wok. We're going to cook a little wok food at the house. She's coming over and going to be there around noon. And then I'm going to teach her everything she knows about cooking. All right. Okay, I think that's what it was. It must have been bad connections right here. You see? That's what I'm trying to show folks here. Never get in a hurry. Take your time. Think it out. You can do this. It's not complicated. I remember a time I used to go, oh my God, look, what is the problem now? You know, I don't need a headache like this. Now I say, bring the headaches on. I love them because I can fix them. But what would have been the worst that could have happened? I'd have torn it apart, tried to clean it, put it back together, and if it still didn't work, then I'd have bought a new 5K pot and put it in there. Not a problem, folks, okay? All right, let's move on and change the capacitor, at least one. Now that we know our pot is good, I think we can just go ahead and remove these 3 wires. At least the pot's good for the time being. We'll go ahead and remove these wires and get rid of this crap. And we're also going to get rid of this wire down here. And we're also going to get rid of this wire here. Okay? At least I think we are. The wires are off the volume control. Let me see if I can turn this around a little bit. Yes, I can. All right, the wires are off the volume control. And the next wire I want to remove is right here off this 0.0005 Aerovox microfarad capacitor. I want to get rid of this. It's old and funky. Now we're going to be putting a new one on. We have to have that wire. This is the wire that goes to the coil. And the coil will be remounted underneath the box. I just don't want that one here. I'm going to put a nice new white one out of there. That wire, the way they had this, it went from pin 2 of the 24 through the arrow box capacitor and then into the box to the coil and then back out of the box, and it came around and it connected back up to pin 4 here, which I'll have to do, of course. And the next wire we're going to, well, that must be wifey again. This second wire that we'll be removing is this one right here, and it runs over and connects to pin 3 of the AVC tube, pin 1, pin 2, pin 3. And what happened was, it was this wire that ran from pin 3 here to the capacitor inside the can, and then outside the can again with another long wire over to this end of our can dome resistor. Now we're going to go ahead and eliminate that. We're not going to be having a capacitor inside the can, so what we're going to do instead, we're just going to run it from right here where this wire is attached. We're going to run it from pin 3 straight down to the can dome. Okay, just straight down. This one right here. We'll be doing it. This is a 0.10, and we will be running it there. Of course, I've still got to ground this end. Okay, it's only going over here because it needs a ground. So I'll be connecting this to here like so, and that right there like so, and we'll just solder that baby in. A long wire eliminated, 2 long wires eliminated. So let's get all that done. That wire is now gone, and the capacitor has been installed, and the wire that ran over here to the box that was attached to this right here where the cap is installed is now gone. So it's time to put a little orange in this baby. Let's put a little orange on here. I like doing that. Alright, that capacitor that went from pin 3 on the AVC right here is now installed. Okay, now installed. One less to do. Okay, what we're going to do, I think, is go ahead and knock it off here. This thing's getting to be a little bit long. I'm going to try to keep these things a little shorter. And sometimes I won't be able to do it. Next time, what we're going to do, we're getting pretty close now where we have to put, we're probably going to have to put the power transformer on the choke, so we can go ahead and get these electrolytics installed, and a couple other caps over here to come down and connect to the bottom of the electrolytics with that resistor, and everything's beginning to tie back into the power transformer. Okay, so but next time we'll start out, I hope we're going to go ahead and run this wire right here coming off pin 4 of the AVC tube, goes through a 40K resistor over to the wiper on the volume control, and that's what this was right here. This was the old 40K. Let me zoom in here. And what they did was this was the wire here. This little black wire here also ran into that box because it was attached not only to this pin 4 was not only attached to that 40K resistor, it was also attached to that capacitor inside that box. So this wire will come off eventually, and we'll hook up our capacitor another way. And this resistor here will have to be changed out with a 40K. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is run it up to the wiper on the volume control. I'll turn the volume control to the right a little bit so it's a little closer to the chassis, the connections, and then I'll attach this end of the resistor to one of these lugs. Okay, these are empty lugs, and then I'll run the wire probably from the same lug that the resistor attaches to. I'll just run that up through close to the chassis, kind of worm my way around all the way up, and by that time I'll have the pot turned, you know, all the way to the right here like that, and I'll be able to bring it up and then go ahead and just attach it to the wiper. So that's what we're going to be doing next time. I hope everybody is still with me on this and understanding what we're doing. If you're getting bored, that's good. I said that once before. If you're getting bored, that's fantastic. That means that you're beginning to understand what it is we're doing, and you're beginning to understand how easy it really is, and you're getting better at it. Okay? Anyway, until next time, this is John.